All right, fellas. So I'm here at my work. I'm going to clean these high ports of rods. These are the valves, and you can tell that engine had some issues going on. It had the nylon seals on the intake port, and then the standard seal on the exhaust, which is kind of common. But I think I'm going to pull them off anyway, just to clean it better and check out the valve guides, because of all the junk in the valves and the intake ports themselves. Once we get them cleaned up, we do a little measuring and ciphering and see what we can figure out to do with these. These were kind of the bomb back in the day when they came out, even stock. Even though they were heavy, they were used by a lot of racers, and they did like the NMRA and all them classes back 20 years ago or 30 years ago even. So they were pretty good. A little work with them, and they can make a lot of power for what he's doing. I don't think we need to make them bigger. We just try to maybe do some port or bowl work, and maybe a little work in the ports on the intake. The exhaust don't look bad at all. So we'll measure the throat and go from there. Once we get them cleaned up, you'll see what they look like in the next clip. All right, so I got these washed, and I did not touch the crud on there. So what I'm going to do is go bead blast these. And well, first I put the heads in here, let them run while I'm bead blasting these, and then come back and hopefully the heads will be cleaner, and I can wash these again. All right, guys, so I got these home. The parts washer didn't get a lot of that funk out of there because it's kind of caked on there and cooked on. So I got the other head in my parts washer soaking. I did clean up this one port though. You can see the exhaust port. You got a pretty good line of sight from the valve area to the port itself. The throat measurements are right on. You got 90% on the intake. It's got a 1.94 valve, so it's 1.74 across and here. 1.6 exhaust valve, and it's at 87%, it's 140. And you can tell somebody's been in here before and done a little chamber work here, smoothed it out. Still got that little ridge right there. And on this, so we'll probably knock that out, maybe drop this area a little bit and smooth that. Probably narrow that down a little bit, see if I can work on that vein, so to speak, that goes in to the sorry about that, into the exhaust or intake. They did not do any porting inside the intake port, but they did do a little bit right at the entrance right here. It's kind of smoothed out, and I'm going to put a gasket up here just for a reference. These I think are like 180 cc, so they're plenty big enough for what Rod's going to do. These are going to go on Krusty as of yesterday, so I really don't need to do much here. You do have to be careful when he puts the gasket on it, because height wise it's like right at the limit, to make sure that stays on. I'll probably maybe glue these on like temporary until so I can mock them up to see where the port's gonna ride and how well the intake seats on here. The exhaust again is about the same way. We're not porting to gasket size or anything like that. I'm just showing you for a reference to how big these are already. So I really don't need to do a whole lot with these either. Exhaust side don't need to be any wider. I could probably straighten some of that out, give it a uniform texture, maybe work on that valve guide right there a little bit. These, Rod sent me a link to these, and some of the early ones had a cast iron valve guide on the intake, and these are somewhat later, so somebody's modified them. They put I guess it's a bronze guide in them. So overall, these are pretty decent shape. One thing I noticed is the like typically when they, I can get this to stop here, when they on the head, this will be recessed somewhat so the oil can drain. Of course, it's going to be at an angle, so it's not going to be like laying flat, but still, I will probably, if I remember, to put a bevel on that real good so the oil can drain down through there faster. And the other thing Rod pointed out too is these both at both ends, where you would have, like on a factory setup, you'd have your O2 smog pump, would have that injection, you call it air injection, smog injection sometimes called. That tube there's where it would bolt onto the head. They both go into the valley of your head, so you got to make sure to put sealant on it. The ones that were on here had Loctite on them, just a little bolt. It's down on the bottom of there. And the other thing I'm going to address is the valve. See, it's got that pretty sharp ridge right there. Probably chuck it up in the drill or the drill press and knock that down a little bit. So essentially these are aftermarket valves. He thought one of them was bent. If it is, I'll find it when I put it in the drill press. And the other thing I found that was kind of odd was the somebody might have already fixed it. I can't tell in here, but the EGR port doesn't go anywhere. It's like stopped. So either they never really had an opening into the exhaust valve here on this one, or they've blocked it off somehow. So once I get all that coked up oil off there, I'll have a better idea of what they did. And I think I'll run over these to get a good uniform finish on them, and that'll be it. These will be ready to go. Won't take me too terribly long, but being as it's cast iron, it'll be a little slower than aluminum. So that's what's going to happen with these. Once I get them all done, I'll throw them in the parts washer. I'll work again and get them cleaned up before I get them to rod. Wow, somebody ran this thing without any kind of a hardened seat, looks like. And I threw all the valve seals away because they had, like I showed you, they had the nylon ones on the intakes, and the valve spring shims that they had were like the ones for like a stock or a GT40 head with a big circle. So those things ended up coming off in the parts washer, and I didn't realize it. Just pardon me while I dig this out. So what that would normally sit on there like so, normally it would have a smaller hole on it, so the valve stem seal or else the spring seat would hold it down. These didn't have any. So most of them came off in the parts washer, and they went down into the bottom of the tank. I had a magnet fishing around in there. I could not get them out. I got 3 of them. We'll see what kind of springs Rod gets for this, and I could probably set them up for him. I forget what kind of cam he's going to have with this thing, but of course it ain't got a whole lot of car to tote around anymore, so it should run pretty good. But I'll do a second half of this video once I get one of these ports knocked out, so you can see what it looks like, and then we'll go from there. All right, appreciate y'all. All right, fellas, so this is like what, part 3 or 4. I think I had 2 videos at work when I was trying to clean these things. So I got 1 cylinder's worth kind of cleaned up enough to do a little something with it. I figured the exhaust port, I'd run a burr through it. I tried a wire brush and brake cleaner. You know, I tried one of these little toothbrushes, and then I have another one. Oh, here it is on the drill. That's a bore brush for a 20 millimeter gun. It's an old one. They were going to throw it away, so I saved it. So I ran that through there, and it still wasn't cutting the stuff down. So then I thought, well, I'll just use the little burr, carbide burr to cut the stuff off, and it caked that burr up. So I don't know what was in there besides burnt oil, but man, it was nasty. So what I did so far, this is pretty much the extent of what I'm going to be doing. I hadn't dressed it up, so this is like a roughed in. There's a ridge around the valve seat. I smoothed that out a little bit, and then I took some of the edge down on that right there. What I did was took an old, he's got a 1.94 valve seat, or valve, and I took an old Explorer intake valve, put in there so I could go around there without dinging up the valve job. And then on the exhaust, it's got a 1.6 exhaust valve. I think this is an intake valve from a E6 head. Maybe not. Oh, there's some junk in there. You can see it kind of fits in there just so that I can do the same thing, kind of go around here. Need to hit that a little bit better right there. And to take care of that, that's the extent of the chamber work. I did drop this down a little bit. And then in the bowl, I didn't really do anything in the bowls because, like I said, they had a good measurement. So I just kind of got a uniform in here. Didn't take hardly any material out. You can see most of it's right down there. And then I kind of narrowed the valve guide vane a little bit. And then as far as the port, there was a little bump up here. I took that out, so it's kind of uniform straight through. The bottom, the floor does come up pretty sharp, so the sealant does the same. You can see where the hole there for where the rocker stud's going to go right there. So we got to make sure to use sealant on the rocker studs, at least over the intakes. And the walls are the same. The floor, kind of left the burr finish, left it rough because he's going to be carbureted. So you want any fuel that runs along the floor to kind of get picked up by the air charge. And then on the exhaust, all I did was run after I got all the funk off of them, you can still see the cast lines in there. So I didn't take any appreciable material off. Just run a sanding roll through there, kind of get it smoothed out a little bit. I might take a flap wheel in there, smooth it out some more, kind of polish it up a little bit. Polishing really don't do a whole lot because, you know, I like polishing to a mirror finish, because after a little bit of run time, it's going to get the coating with the exhaust in it. So if you get it smooth, though, it makes it harder for it to stick. I'm not sure how big of a difference it would be. And that's the extent of it. I didn't make it any wider. They're plenty wide. All the port sizes were decent from the beginning. And so I just kind of touched them up a little bit. That was essentially it. So now I got to put this in the parts washer and let it soak for a week or so I can get all that funk off there before I attempt any more. And once I get all these done, I'll go back to rod. So that's it for a little bit of porting on a high port. All right, appreciate y'all. Later.